The evening after the battle with the spiders, Bilbo and the dwarves made one last despairing effort to find a way out of the forest before they died of hunger and thirst. Suddenly, out sprang the light of many torches all round them, like hundreds of red stars. Wood-elves! There was no thought of a fight. The only weapons they had would have been of no use against the arrows of the wood-elves that could hit a bird's eye in the dark. So they simply stopped dead and sat down and waited. All except Bilbo, who popped on his ring and slipped quickly to one side. When the elves bound the dwarves in a long line, one behind the other, and counted them, they never found or counted the Hobbit. Nor did they hear him trotting along well behind as they led off their prisoners into the forest. Suddenly the torches stopped, then began to cross the bridge that led across the river to the door of the king's domain. Across this bridge the elves thrust their prisoners, and Bilbo only made up his mind not to desert his friends just in time to scuttle over at the heels of the last elves before the great gates of the king closed behind them with a clang. In a great hall with pillars hewn out of the living stone, on a chair of carven wood, sat the Elven King. He looked grimly at the prisoners and told his men to unbind them, for they were ragged and weary. "They need no rope in here," he said. "Once inside, there is no escape from my magic doors." Long and searchingly he questioned the dwarves about their doings. The dwarves were surly and angry. "What have we done, O king?" said Balin, who was the eldest left. "Is it a crime to be lost in the forest, to be hungry and thirsty and trapped by spiders? Are they your pets, if killing them makes you angry?" Such a question, of course, made the king angrier than ever, and he answered, "It is a crime to wander in my realms without leave. I have a right to know what brings you here, and if you remain silent, here you will stay until you have learned sense and manners." The dwarves were each put in a separate cell and given food and drink, but not allowed to pass the doors of their little prison until one at least of them was willing to tell the king what he wanted to know. But he did not tell them that Thorin was also a prisoner. It was Bilbo who found that out. Poor Mr. Baggins. It was a weary long time that he lived in that place all alone, always in hiding, never daring to take off his ring, hardly daring to sleep, tucked away in the darkest and remotest corners he could find. For something to do, he took to wandering about the Elven King's palace. He was hungry, but he could pick up a morsel here and there, thanks to the ring. "I am like a burglar that can't get away, but must go on miserably burgling the same house day after day," he thought. "I wish I was back in my hobbit hole by my own warm fireside." Eventually, after a week or two sneaking about, he managed to find out where each dwarf was kept in different parts of the palace. Imagine his joy one day when he overheard some guards talking about another dwarf held in a specially deep, dark place. He guessed at once. After many careful trackings, he found him. Thorin was too wretched to be angry any longer at his misfortunes, and was even beginning to think of telling the king all about his treasure and his quest, when he heard Bilbo's little voice at his keyhole. He could hardly believe his ears. He came to the door and had a long, whispered talk with the hobbit on the other side. Bilbo took his messages to the others that they were not to breathe a word of their quest till Thorin gave the word. The other dwarves quite agreed. They all thought their own shares in the treasure would suffer seriously if the Wood-elves claimed part of it, and they all trusted Bilbo.